Hey Cake Chums, and welcome back to another video. Now, I'm not sure if I've mentioned it here on my channel before, but I watch a lot of YouTube. And I mean a lot. Probably quite an unhealthy amount, really. But never mind. My YouTube viewing habits take in a wide array of content, including, oddly enough, quite a large number of beauty YouTubers. Maybe I'm just addicted to the drama. But when I learned that one of my favourite beauty YouTubers was releasing her first ever palette, I say first ever because we don't talk about the other one, I wanted to get involved in the excitement. Now obviously, as you can tell, I don't wear makeup, although maybe it might be time I start. But anyway, so I thought, what would be the next best thing? And then it occurred to me, can we help NikkieTutorials celebrate the release of her brand new collaboration palette with Beauty Bay by turning it into a cake? So I'd like to invite you to join me on another cake-related adventure as we find out, can we cake it? Let's get to the video. Now obviously, if we are going to turn Nikkie's brand new palette into a cake, we're going to need something for reference. Now of course we could just use a selection of photos. There are many of them on the internet already, but there's nothing better than the real thing. Now as you'd expect, Nikkie's palette did sell out incredibly quickly, although I know that a restock is on the way. But luckily, for once, I was actually quite organised and guess who got one? So I have to admit, this is my very first ever experience of buying a makeup palette, not to mention joining in with a huge online launch. The stress of being in that queue online as my pre-order went live was something else, but we managed to get our hands on a NikkieTutorials and Beauty Bay pressed pigment palette. Now it comes in a box like this, and you'll see that it is black with this nice keyhole logo on the front, which is split into two parts, and there's the colourful half and then the black and white half. And I believe Nikkie explained in her video that this was to represent kind of her bright and bubbly side, but then also her dark and more mysterious side. And then inside the box we have got the palette itself. So again, just like the keyhole on the front, we've got the bright, colourful side here, and then we've got the dark and more mysterious side. I'll let you have a closer look at that for yourself. And then inside the palette, if we open it up carefully, you will see that we have got the palette itself. Now again, I'm no expert on makeup, I'm no expert on palettes, but I have to say I am loving the variety of colours in here. And I'm particularly loving this magnifying mirror as well, because it's just quite a nice touch, I think. Oh dear. Now obviously, as you can see straight away, there isn't a huge amount of bulk to the palette part itself. So when we're thinking about turning this into cake, I guess we have to be a bit more creative. And so what I was thinking I might do is create this box out of cake, and then do the palette itself out of kind of like icing, modelling paste and things like that. And then I guess it's going to bring quite a few challenges, because number one, we have to figure out this hinge mechanism. We need to try and recreate all of these beautiful shades using edible colours. And I would like to point out that this ding here in Amsterdam was me. I shoved the clear plastic protective film right into the palette, so well done me. We've got this artwork on the front, and then well, to be fair, that's probably enough to be getting on with, isn't it? Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of shot this video out of order. So while I'm talking to you now, I have already finished my cake recreation. And there's a reason why this video is going up so late, to put it that way. I had allowed myself 2 days for this project, and it ended up taking 4. And yeah, so what I thought I'd do is I'd take you through the journey that I went on recreating Nikkie's palette, and then Where I managed to get footage of me working on those particular parts, I'll drop it in. But I will warn you, there were quite a few stressful moments where I ended up just turning off the camera. But we did manage to get somewhere in the end, so hang on to the end of the video and we will have a grand reveal of my cake recreation of Nikkie's Beauty Bay makeup palette. Now, as I've already mentioned, I decided that I was going to recreate, I've already lost it, I decided that I was going to recreate the box in cake. And so the first thing I did was bake a sheet cake, or a half sheet cake, just using a delicious lemon flavour Victoria sponge, which I then used this box as a reference to cut it to size. That was then covered with a crumb coat of dark chocolate ganache, and then I gave that a final top coat. And I think I've got footage of this, so hopefully you're seeing the stunning results that I was able to achieve on those square edges. Now, in a bit of a schoolboy error, I realised I didn't actually have any black sugar paste and I'd left it too late to order some in. So instead of using black sugar paste, I covered it with white and then airbrushed it to achieve that nice black. Now, if you look really closely at the box, hopefully you can see that without too much reflection, it is also glittery. So I used an edible glitter product, which was actually named by the readers of Mr. Baker's Cakes, the blog, in a competition last year. And that was Magic Colours Bling Bling Dust. This is probably the shiniest edible glitter that I've come across. So I decided to use this to apply that glittery effect to the cake. Unfortunately, I only had gold, and this is more of a kind of holographic, so multi-dimensional glitter. But it's a glittery cake, and I think we were able to achieve some quite good results. The downside of this product is that there is now glitter on every single surface in my entire studio, and I will be finding it for months. And then of course, there was the keyhole decoration on the top. Now, to make the keyhole, I used the same technique that I used for actually making the palette artwork. So if we put a pin in that, not literally, I'll talk you through how we did the palette and then bring everything together. So I decided to make the palette using a combination of Renshaw flour modelling paste, which is perfect for things like this because it sets so hard. It's almost like pastillage, if I'm honest, and therefore allowed me to achieve panels of the right thicknesses that I needed for the different elements of the palette. I keep trying to pick up the cake instead of the palette, so hopefully that means I did a reasonably good job. So when we look at the cross section of the palette here, you can see that we have got this kind of bottom layer here, which goes into this side seam here, seam, edge, and then the actual flap, door, that bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels, and they were all, I think I measured them to be about 3 mil thick. So to make those, I rolled out some Renshaw flour modelling paste to about 3 mil thick and then cut panels in the sizes of the base, the sides and the top, giving me 5 panels in total. We then, again returning to this cross section, have this second layer here, which is where the actual shadows live. And so that I think was about 0.7 mil. And again, I just rolled out another panel of Renshaw flour modelling paste to that thickness and then used a small square cutter to remove all of the little holes for the shadows. Again, if I bring this in nice and close, you should be able to see that the shadows themselves are recessed slightly into that panel. So unfortunately, it wasn't going to be a case of simply just putting the shadows on top. They did actually need to go inside. And so that's why I had to remove those squares, roll out some more modelling paste, cut out squares to go into the palette, and then set pretty much everything aside to dry. Now, Nikkie didn't make things easy for us because you'll notice that not only does the outside of the palette have 2 different sides to it, but inside, over here we have a pink panel and over here we have a black panel. And to make matters even more complicated, this central bit with the shadows in starts at a pink and then kind of goes through a purple ombre until it ends up at black over on this corner. So clearly I wasn't going to be able to do this with pre-coloured paste, and so that required some airbrushing. I don't think I've got any footage of that because with the amount of airbrushing I was doing between the cake and all the different panels and so on, I actually set the fire alarm off in our house. So that was good. But yeah, so that was all airbrushed, either with the black or the pink or the ombre through purple. And then we got to the really fun bit, and that was trying to recreate all the dust colours. Now to do that, I started with my massive collection of rainbow dust, powder dust colours. For those of you who don't know, I am a Rainbow Dust Colours brand ambassador, so they very kindly make sure I'm always completely stocked with their full range. But of course, I wasn't going to find every single colour that I needed in Rainbow Dust's range. And so, once I'd exhausted all of their fabulous colours, I had to look slightly further afield. There were some colours in particular that gave me quite a bit of a tricky time. For example, Redemption, which is this really deep yellowy orangey colour up in the corner here. And I ended up finding a similar colour to that from a company called Roxy and Rich. So if I hold those kind of next to each other, can you see? We managed to get a fairly good match there. Ew was fairly tricky as well, and the closest I managed to get was this green colour, if I can get them near each other, which was from a company called Fractal Colours. Amsterdam also came from Fractal Colours, and that was their royal blue. Where is Amsterdam? There it is. That's when I've shoved something through. And then of course we had the metallics to deal with as well. Luckily, I have quite a big collection of the Faye Cahill metallic powder colours, or luster dusts. If you don't know, Faye Cahill is an amazing Australian cake artist who has her own range of metallic luster dusts. And amongst her colours, I was able to find almost everything I needed. For example, for Ivy, which is a beautiful kind of white colour up here, I used Faye's Pearl White luster. And for, NikkieTutorials, which is this kind of two-tone duochromy browny green colour, I ended up using, what did I end up using? This stunning olive leaf gold from Faye Cahill, and it was almost a perfect match, I would say. There were some colours that I wasn't quite able to achieve just by using ready-made, and so for colours like NikkieTutorials, which is this really stunning blue metallic down here, I ended up mixing my Rainbow Dust Baby Blue with some silver glitter, which I have lost, but some silver glitter luster, and going back to that Pearl White from Faye Cahill again. So I'm not exaggerating when I say that creating the eyeshadow shades themselves was probably one of the trickiest parts of this whole project. And unfortunately, I didn't realise that when I steamed my palette right at the end, as I do with all my cakes to remove any fingerprints or kind of corn flour, icing sugar, those sorts of things, a lot of those powders changed colour. And this was after I'd put them into the palette. So in the final reveal, as you'll see at the end, they're not all spot on, unfortunately, but I have to say I was really happy with how they came out when I first did them. Another tricky aspect of the project was, of course, the artwork on the front. Now, I was originally intending on using my techniques that I've shown you guys before in my doodle cakes. Oh, I don't have one behind me at the moment, but if you remember that big cake that I used to have here with all the kind of hand-drawn artwork on it, I thought in particular for this side of the palette, that technique would work really, really well. So using my edible markers to recreate the art. But, there's a lot of buts. When I got the palette, as in when I finally saw it in person, I hadn't realised that this side actually features a photograph, or at least like a computer digitally produced photo style image of this temple, which of course I wouldn't be able to reproduce using pens or paints or what have you. I'm sure there are people out there who could, but no. So my next thought was, could I use my edible printer to reproduce this artwork on the front, which yes, is a bit of cop-out or a bit cheating, but what's a man to do? So I tried that, and as you'll see, the edible printer really wasn't able to capture the vibrancy that I was after with my recreation in Cake. So I thought, why not compromise? And so I ended up photocopying the palette artwork and ending up with this really pale version, but then grabbing my Rainbow Dust edible markers and going over everything, pretty much except for the temple, to kind of bring all those bright colours out and everything like that. And I think actually the results were pretty good. It's not a perfect match, but it's definitely better than I would have been able to achieve by freehanding it or by just using the edible print. Kind of got the best of both worlds. And then of course the final challenge was bringing everything together. So of course the first thing to do was to apply the printed and then hand coloured artwork onto the panels, which if you remember I had airbrushed, and that went reasonably well. And then it was kind of the trickiest part, which was adding the hinges to make the palette actually open and close like the real one. And to do that, I kind of went through quite a few different ideas and theories, but it was really important to me that everything I used on this project was edible. So I was really looking for a product that could maintain its flexibility at least for long enough to get the kind of the final reveal images done and things like that, but also be strong enough that it's not going to break as soon as I try and manipulate it. And so I settled on using a sheet of edible, sorry, I keep looking at the monitor instead of the camera, so I do apologise that most of this video is me staring off over there somewhere. So yeah, I decided to use a sheet of edible icing paper because it's incredibly flexible, and particularly when it's quite humid as it is at the moment, it doesn't go brittle too quickly. So I was thinking it's got enough strength at least for me to be able to put the palette together, take a few videos, take a few photographs, and then whatever happens, happens. Which would have been fine, but then of course you have to bring edible glue into the mix when you're attaching it to other things. And as soon as I did that, it lost its structural integrity. And basically, the first time I opened the palette, it completely just fell apart, which was fun because then I had to try and hide all the jagged pieces of icing paper that was sticking out from where I'd put it to make the hinges. So yeah, that was really fun, and in all honesty, that's probably the biggest fail of my edible recreation because I wasn't able to fix those hinges in time for the video. So I must confess that yes, the palette does open, but it opens by you very carefully lifting up the flap and laying it down next to it. It is not attached. But I made an edible makeup palette, so I'm thinking it's almost a win, almost. But anyway, that's an awful lot of talking, and I'm sure most of you are just sat there thinking, we just want to see the cake. So, in fact, most of you probably skipped ahead to find the cake. So without much further ado, I would like to present to you my edible recreation of the NikkieTutorials Beauty Bay Pressed Pigment palette. Ta-da! As I say, mostly happy with how it came out. A couple of bits that didn't quite work. The colours aren't quite perfect. The artwork on the front is a little bit more muted, and of course, as I've already said, the hinges didn't work in the end. But as a first attempt at making a completely edible makeup palette, I think that was a pretty good effort. And in answer to the question of, can we cake it? I think the answer is mostly. Let me know what you think. Was it a successful cakey recreation? Head down to the comments and let me know what you think. But anyway guys, that was an awful lot of me just talking at you with probably very little actual footage of me working on this cake, so apologies for that. I promise next time not to have any stressy paddies and actually just video the whole thing. But yes, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a massive thumbs up, and feel free to tag Nikki down in the comments and share this video on your social media, tagging her as well, as I would love for her to see this cakey celebration of her palette launch. I think she's done an absolutely stunning job, and I can't wait to see the results that people are able to create with it. And who knows, maybe one day I will be brave enough to have a go myself, but I wouldn't hold your breath. Yes, as I say, if you enjoyed this video, please do feel free to give it a massive thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to Mr. Baker's Cakes here on YouTube, you can do that right now by hitting the big red button down there on the right. If you are already subscribed, then first of all, thank you very much. And second, don't forget you can hit the bell icon if you would like to get a notification of every time I upload a new video. If you have an idea of something else from the world of YouTube that you would like to see me recreate in cake and find out the answer to the question, can we cake it? Then of course do head down to the comment section and let me know what you think. Who knows, maybe next I should have a go at recreating a chocolate bust of Nikki herself and actually use the powder colours that I matched to her palette to recreate one of her makeup looks. Why would I suggest that? Because now people are going to want me to do it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you at the same time next week, and until then, have a fantastic week and happy caking. Take care.